Hello and welcome to the Gaggle Wobble Challenge, and if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, after all the speculation that we would be waiting for 2 weeks for President Trump to make up his mind whether he would or maybe not bomb Iran, it turned out that we didn't have to wait 2 weeks. We only had to wait a few hours. So on Saturday evening, East Coast time, the United States bombed Iran's three nuclear facilities, Fordo, Nafas, and Isfahan. Trump naturally hailed this immediately as a fantastic victory, fantastic achievement. All the goals have been accomplished.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's his. But how he could establish that at such an early stage is itself very dubious. And as we're recording this podcast, we're naturally speculating as to what happens now. What we can definitely say is that Trump has, without question, betrayed his promises, betrayed his own base, and has done what no other president, I think, has done. I mean, we know the United States is obviously very close to Israel, has always supported Israel, but no U.S. president has actually undertaken a military mission explicitly on behalf of Israel. And no U.S. president has ever undertaken a military mission in collaboration with Israel. So he's got much beyond that. And thus it making his America First, Make America Great Again pitch particularly obnoxious and particularly dishonest, that he has essentially mortgaged off U.S. foreign policy to another state. And we're going to take a look at what he said last night after the attacks. But essentially, this was a military objective undertaken for the sake of Israel. And Trump really didn't even bother to hide it.
We didn't even explain what the strategic reasoning behind it. He didn't explain how this is in benefits American security or preserves it. It's very interesting. I like how you've opened this up because we had John Mearsheimer and Steve Waltz write their book. I guess it was 2003, five, something like that.
Yeah, maybe 2006, something maybe.
Yeah, Israeli lobby. And, obviously that's made the rounds. And at the risk of butchering its primary thesis is that Israel will get its way. Israel can sway the United States, its foreign policy, particularly when it comes to Israel and its security in the Middle East. Now, Norman Finkelstein is a contrarian. I think a very brilliant guy. Has a unique delivery. I think everyone would agree. But he likes the book. He likes the thesis, but he says and if I remember, again, I'll probably crudely summarize it here. But yes, they overlap. But when push comes to shove, the United States will step back. Okay, we had Ronald Reagan with Menachem Begin, and that's just one example. Joe Biden didn't sign off on an attack on Iran, which is been the top line issue for Israel for 30 years, particularly with Netanyahu. So what's interesting, the reason why I like the way you opened it, because I had basically taken Norman Finkelstein's thesis, but now I think Waltz and Mearsheimer, they have won the day.
Yeah.
Because we've never had an American president that would go this far. I always try to find a little bit of levity because this is so grave in what we're facing right now. I just wonder how many cases of Scotch Mike Waltz has gone through since his firing. Because, I mean, if he'd been able just to hang on a little bit longer, okay, because this is exactly what he was accused of doing and fired. He's languishing. His name has not been presented to the Senate to become
Yeah.
UN representative. I mean, talk about crash and burn. You leave a safest of safe seats,
Yeah.
he could have been leader of the party one day.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Yes, yes. That it is a mystery exactly what happened there.
Well,
As
and also all the more so, George. I mean, even like a week ago, or 8, 9, 10 days ago, before Israel said, I was asking, they're clearing the decks at the National Security Council of Iran hawks. This
right,
was all reported in Politico, brought to you by USAID. I mean, was it this elaborate?
right.
This ruse? I
But
guess.
that is a mystery. So let's just take a look at what he how the news was delivered, because it was Trump who revealed yesterday evening this what had happened. He said, "We have completed
So
our
who's
very."
again, pronoun check? Who's we?
Very, very good point. Yes. We have completed our very successful attack on the three nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. All planes are now outside of Iran airspace, a full payload of bombs. So it's very
Yeah.
interesting why he does certain
This
things in uppercase, bombs. As if you want to emphasize bombs, like a comic strip, when somebody have carry a
Yeah.
bomb in
Well,
it.
I guess he's trying to say they were big bombs.
They were big, some big smoking, was dropped on the primary site, Fordo. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace. This is just so breathtaking in its insolence. Now is the time for peace. You thump someone. And we got to repeat this. I know it's very obvious. This is a completely unprovoked attack. Unprovoked. Iran had done nothing wrong, not one thing wrong. Um, and he makes this attack while negotiations had been taking place. And Iran apparently was under the impression that these were bona fide negotiations. And then he says, now is the time for peace. So you thump somebody, you cripple them, and you say, well, now's the time for peace. Now let's work together. And then thank you for your attention to this matter. So that was his first.
Thank you for your attention. Is this code to somebody?
I don't know. There's something that it's a kind of passive aggressive thing, like I don't know, like lawyers, like thank you for your attention to this matter. They've just written you a really nasty, threatening letter, and then they say, well, thank you for your attention. Or it's like, or somebody fires you, your boss fires you, and then he tells you, have a nice day. So it's I don't know. There's something passive aggressive about this.
I just think he's sending a signal to someone like
Maybe.
I've done what you've told me to do. Keep whatever you have under wrap. Obviously I'm being sarcastic here, but
Right.
this truth, or this message, is now part of the historical record,
Hmm.
and it will be referred to moving forward.
Right.
Okay. And on the day that the United States attacked another country for no reason whatsoever, unprovoked, unilaterally, and he's thanking us for our attention,
Right.
as if we don't have your attention.
Right. Now, what's interesting is that, as you said, he has offered no explanation why he has done this, no explanation how this in any way benefits the United States. He'd made no preparation. There'd been no preparations at all, other than those various bits and pieces in his various when he's flying on Air Force One and he's talking to reporters, and then he says this, and then he says that. There's no, even the invasion of Iraq, that took 18 months of preparation. They had to really mobilize the public, get everybody on board. They had to fake the intelligence, put out all these lies about Saddam Hussein. Here, he's done none of that. And there's nothing. There isn't even. There's no dodgy dossier. There's no fake intelligence about Iran. So and then he just sort of launches this. and with this apparent urgency. And then when you ask, well, what's the urgency? Well, he said 60 days. So it was 60 days, and now it's day 61. So the 60 days were up, so he had to move. I mean, this is at the level of complete cretinism. I mean, so
Well, and
what? He said 60 days.
and the 60-day thing is kind of, retroactively activated in
Yeah,
my mind.
right.
You and I didn't talk about the
No,
60-day, and I didn't see anybody else talking
no,
about
no
the
one did.
60-day. No,
No
no
one did.
one.
No one did. You're absolutely right because people are only talking about it now simply because Trump has brought it up about the 60 days. And Trump seemed to have brought
No,
it
it was the Israelis that
Israelis
reminded
exactly with
him.
Netanyahu said, "Hey, you said 60 days, and today's day 61." And 60 days was just meaningless. Trump is always issuing these stupid deadlines. No one pays any
How
attention.
many times in Ukraine it's been 2 weeks?
2 weeks. Oh, yeah, it's got to be 2 weeks. Yeah. So that was his first truth, and then he sends out another truth. This exuberant truth: Fordo is gone, and
We have to remind everyone that the three sites that were bombed that Trump is so proud of, as far as I understand, all centrifuges and anything else of value have been moved away from most of these sites. Okay, I mean, I saw again, it's on Twitter. It's veracity. Who can tell?
right,
There was a convoy of trucks, a picture, and all that. I don't know.
right,
Anyway, it's in the mix. Okay,
right.
so. Um, and we have no idea what the damage
No,
assessment
no,
is.
not at
None
all.
whatsoever.
He has no idea. When he sent this out, he had absolutely no idea that it's gone or not gone. I mean, he doesn't know. I said, oh look, well, there's a lot of damage, but it's deep underground. You don't know how much damage is been there. And then he sent out another truth. He says, I will be giving an address to the nation at 10 p.m. at the White House. So that's his first time that he's delivering any kind of an address to the American people about Iran. 10 o'clock in the evening on Saturday, you're not likely to get much of an audience. I mean, that's just
Everybody in the media world, you know what this time period, what we call it, taking out the trash.
yes, yes, yes. Um, I mean, 10 o'clock on Saturday, nobody is watching the news at 10 o'clock on Saturday. I mean, that's just 10 p.m. at the White House regarding our very successful military operation in Iran. This is an historic moment for the United States of America, Israel, and the world. Well, it's nice of him to put in Israel in there. United States of America, Israel, and the world. So you have America, you have Israel, and then you have the world.
Iran, again in capital letters, Iran must now agree to end
Yes,
this war. It's a war? I
it's a
mean,
war.
Iran was attacked.
It's a war. Iran must now agree to end this war. Iran was attacked. It was an unprovoked attack on Iran without any again. There's no no ultimatum, no conditions or whatever. This was an unprovoked attack. It came out of nowhere, just on this fiction about the 6 days, day 61. Did you say day 60, after day 60, we will bomb? I don't remember anyone saying after day 60, we will bomb.
What
Um,
does what does a 60-day time frame mean when
Nothing.
you're in the middle of negotiations? Come
Nothing.
on, everyone. Come on.
It means nothing.
It
I mean, it's
means
like
nothing.
exactly in negotiations. Trump, who's supposed to the art of the deal, the art of the deal. When he does these real estate deals, are they really all done in 60 days? Just buying a building. How many months does it take to negotiate the purchase of a building in New York
Well,
City? It's
yeah, and,
months.
and if you're using the real estate thing, so after 60 days, I'm going to steal your property or I'm going to destroy your property. What? I'm going to have an arsonist drop by.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
come on.
Yes.
There's no art here at all. There's no finesse here at
Right.
all.
Right.
This is mindless, right makes right
Right.
approach. Okay.
Exactly. So it's unprovoked. No, no conditions or whatever were presented. This was just the attack came out of nowhere. And then he puts that again, the thank you. Thank whom are you thanking and for what? So then he delivered this very, very terse address. I mean, this was really terse. I mean, this wasn't in any way a speech or anything like that. This was essentially an announcement of what he had just done. So here it is. A short time ago, the US military carried out massive precision strikes on the three key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime, Fordow, Natanz, Isfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's number one state sponsor of terror.
Okay, there we go. The first check. Go ahead.
That's right. So he's
The,
now
the,
brought
the,
the,
the
yeah,
tropes that we've heard for 30 years.
that's
Check.
right. Yes. It means nothing. The world's number one state sponsor. Notice that up until now, he had only spoken about this. Oh, they can't have a nuclear weapon. But otherwise, I love the Iranian people. They can be such a great country. And so it's just now suddenly, well, it doesn't sound like you like them very much. You're bringing up this number one state sponsor of terror. And now he's saying the nuclear enrichment capacity. So before he was just talking about the nuclear weapons. So now
Yeah,
you make explicitly that you're just basically going to hit the nuclear enrichment capacity, which, as we've repeated ad nauseum, is legal.
what's really interesting is that, again, now this is a historical document. There is no reference to the debate that we've seen in the public sphere of the pros and cons, and it's real. I mean, maybe not so much in the mainstream,
Right,
but beyond.
right.
There's no mention of that, as if there was no debate
That's right.
at all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. but the extraordinary thing is there has been no debate. There was a lengthy debate before the invasion of Iraq. There was a debate.
Yeah, and that was the last time you saw John Mearsheimer in the public airwaves.
That's right. Um, so again, but the thing about Iraq and Trump, who wrote to the nomination in 2015 by told we were lied to, lies, lies, lies. It went on and on about the lies. But at least
And Jeb Bush was never heard from
never
again.
heard from again. But at least in that case, there was an ostensible, feeble, dishonest justification. Well, we were attacked on 9/11. Iran has not attacked the United States, so there's no attack here. Um, and there was all this, the dodgy dossier, and the Bush administration had attempted to get UN Security Council resolution to support their action. Now, of course, that was immediately flatly rejected at the UN Security Council. But nothing like what Trump has done here. He hasn't presented any fake intelligence or anything, and he hasn't attempted to get the UN Security Council on board, and he can't even present in any way that Iran has done anything to the United States.
No smoking gun.
Nothing. And you had the nerve to start attacking the Bushes? And so it's a number one state sponsor of terror. And then says, tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace.
Well, I
Um,
mean, do you mean Donald Trump surrender? Is that what you mean?
that is exactly what it means. But I always love it when Americans refer to somebody else as a bully. So America sort of whack, whack, whack. And so America, the greatest military power in the world, basically Iran is no challenge whatever to America, and then you turn around and say, "Oh, you're the bully. You're a bully." Even though and Iran has been the one attacked by Israel. Now, a classic of this was again in the 90s with the Serbs. The Serbs are the bullies. We have to bomb the Serbs because they're bullies. Um, but this must now make peace. You must make peace. And then he goes on. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
Well, there's a flaw in Trump's logic, no surprise. So if their enrichment cycle has been destroyed, then why would there need to be future attacks?
Well, that's a very interesting question. And what I'm assuming he means here is if they don't make peace with Israel, if they continue to attack Israel, we will attack Iran. Because that's what I said, oh, they must make peace. What do you mean by make peace? Well, stop attacking Israel, which means essentially he's laying the groundwork for the next cycle of American attacks.
So this is the protection racket. This is all
Yes,
about Israel again.
exactly.
Right.
So he's just laying the groundwork. Well, hey, I told them to make peace. Look, they're still attacking Israel. Since the notion that retaliation all that is gone, and the media will just keep repeating, "Oh, Iran is attacking Israel. Israel is our greatest ally. Iran is attacking our closest friend and ally. We must do something." Trump is just laying the groundwork and saying, "Yeah, we got to do something because Iran is refusing to make peace." For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel.
Yeah,
Okay,
well, America and Israel has brought death to Iran.
yes.
Now, those weren't words.
You know, I mean, nobody likes to. I don't want to go back in history, but Iran does have grievances going back to 1953, the overthrow of Mohammad Mossadegh, and the restoration of the Shah, who was an absolutely buffoonish, incompetent, imbecilic leader, hated in Iran, and was
And
kicked out
his
of
son
Iran.
is waiting in the
He's
wings.
waiting in the wing. I want to come back. But
Yeah, after I visit the Wailing Wall before I return to Tehran. Okay, he's just on the payroll of so many Zionist groups. It's
yes, yes, yes,
buffoonish.
yes. Alan Dershowitz is his big supporter. Um, now, for 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. And so what? You can say what you like. Why shouldn't they say death to America, death to Israel? I mean, for 40 years, Americans have been spitting venom at Iran. Has there been one American political leader who has said anything positive about Iran?
Has any American leader, if they using the Tucker Carlson Tel Aviv TED interview, does any American president know the population of Iran?
Then he says, they have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty.
Is this in Iraq?
I'm assuming he's talking about Iraq. Now, that was the argument that was used about why he assassinated Soleimani, which again was never really explained why he did that.
Actually,
Um,
George, I found it astounding that he mentioned Soleimani in his speech. That's the
that's
only
right.
thing in the speech that really kind of surprised me. Soleimani was the kryptonite to Al Qaeda and its 31 flavors of terrorism.
Right.
Soleimani is a great humanitarian.
That's
He took it upon himself to rid us of the scourge of Al
right.
Qaeda and all of its offshoots, which of course was incubated by the United States and its
Yes.
allies.
Yeah. Now, the thing about killing American soldiers in Iraq. Now, people have questioned that. There were people, scholars have questioned that Soleimani was involved in killing Americans in Iraq. But even if it's true, even if he was responsible for that, why wouldn't Iran do that? Iran was not happy about the U.S. invasion of a neighboring country. Iran, for obvious
Particularly
reasons.
everyone on the other side of Iran was Afghanistan.
which was also under military occupation by the United States. And given the U.S. hostility, you can absolutely think about Iran and being very concerned about being surrounded by the United States. So why wouldn't Iran raise the cost to the United States of their military occupation in Iraq? I mean, so the way he presents it as if Iran was just doing this just because it's sadistic. You know, they like blowing off people's arms and heads and legs.
Well, that's what the Israelis do,
That's
right?
what the Israelis do. See, the Americans went and invaded Iraq. Iran didn't go and invade any neighbor of America. Then he says, we lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I don't know what he's talking about. Who are these hundreds of thousands throughout the
I,
Middle East who have
I,
died? I mean, who is he
I,
talking about? I mean,
I have no idea.
but you see, they're always saying this Hamas and Hezbollah are somehow run by Iran. Oh, Iran's
All right.
behind them. But
Well, I mean, Hezbollah and Hamas, whatever you think of them, so they wouldn't exist, come into existence without Iran. No, these are resistance organizations. Okay, no, nobody in Hezbollah needs to take the lead, accept the lead from Iran. Hey, maybe I should resist
right,
Israeli occupation. I think they kind of came up with that idea on their own.
right,
Yeah, they had a confluence of interests,
right,
but they're not they're very, very different organizations and had different goals and the ways they achieved them. Did they have a common enmity towards Israel? Well, of course they did. I mean, but that's not explanatory.
no. And the truth is that if Iran and that Hamas somehow attacked Israel at the behest of Iran, why didn't Iran do anything? Iran did nothing following October the 7th. Nothing. I mean, it didn't get
This
involved at
is
all.
George is bringing up a good point, everyone, and that's a criticism coming from some members of our part of the debate that they didn't. There was an opening. See, this goes back all the way back to right with the immediate podcast George and I made after October 7th. Is that I said then, and now I'll have to abbreviate it, but the axis of resistance and Israel and its backers will want to solve all problems in all places at one time. Well, Israel is succeeding in
Right,
doing that. Okay. The resistance, they have failed to do that.
right,
Okay.
right, exactly.
Wait, the Houthis took the cue.
The Houthis did. Hezbollah did very half-heartedly. Never didn't really, raise the costs to Israel in the way
Well,
that we expected them to do. They did a little bit, but it wasn't in any way that was caused serious problems for Israel.
this happens very often is that and I'm not saying this because I have inside knowledge, but there is a tendency for organizations where they make stated claims like liberating the south of Lebanon from Israeli occupation. That's a good one, and it's a valid one, and a commendable one. But as time passes, it's kind of like, well, we kind of just want to continue to exist,
Yes,
okay?
yes,
And it shifts because then there, instead of the goals that you
right,
want to achieve through time, the
right,
goal is to maintain yourself and your organization, which, Hezbollah, on terms of its own,
right,
what it provided society was quite successful. I mean, a
right.
hell of a lot more than the Lebanese government,
Yes,
okay?
yes, yes. No, that's
And
right.
that clouds things. I mean, it certainly doesn't apply to Hamas. And one day I'd like to know the decision making process about
Right.
was it understood what would be coming your way? Okay, and that you go down a lot of that's really deep kind of conscious stuff. I mean, you attack, they will commit genocide on you.
Yep. No, that's right. And that was, I mean, I mean, I knew what was coming. I mean, just about everybody knew what was coming. I mean, it wasn't a mystery. We know exactly what Israel does. We know exactly what Israel has done to Gaza, and we knew exactly what Israel would do in those circumstances. We knew it would wage a war of deliberate savagery. As we can see, Israel can do targeted killings. It's quite good at targeted killings. It turns out you don't have to start killing thousands upon thousands of women and children in order to get one person. But suddenly, but when it comes to Gaza, apparently, hey, we just can't do anything because Hamas is ubiquitous, so we just have to destroy entire towns and villages. Anyway, he goes on, I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. I'm not
Oh,
clear what he means by this.
yeah. Well,
What is the
I
this?
mean, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Go
we
ahead.
said this is death to America, death to Israel. They've been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs. We lost over 1,000 people, hundreds of thousands around the Middle East, have died as a result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general. And then I had decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It's not clear to me what he means by this.
I have no idea. I mean, if okay, let's take it at face value. A long time ago, I think in common parlance that could we could easily assume years. Yeah, a long time ago.
Hmm.
Then so what was the horse and donkey show that we've seen for the last few months?
Right.
Does that include the long time ago?
No, that's right. But the problem is, yes, no, that's correct, is that when he's saying this, and it's throughout this little statement, he's lying because he's saying, oh, it's all about these nuclear facilities, when it's obvious he's talking about regime change. This is clearly, well, all
Well,
these
and then why
terrible
are you
things
bringing
Iran
up
has
Solomon?
done. I would not let this happen.
If it was about the nuclear cycle, then why are you talking about Soleimani?
Exactly. That's the point. That's exactly it. He is not, he's lying. He wants to persuade, but oh, it's very, very limited. Oh, no, the only thing, and this was Pete Hegseth was saying, no, no, it was very, very limited. This is not a major mission. No, no, no. We're just focused on these three sites. But it's clear. No, you're not. It's the regime. You're attacking the regime. You're not focusing on these sites. I would not let this happen. It will not continue. And then this is the punchline. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. So you're delivering this speech, and you want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, Prime Minister of another country. It's not like, well, I want to thank and congratulate Secretary of State Marco Rubio. I want to thank and congratulate Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu.
Well, all the more so, I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister. Why he says Bibi is a mystery to me. His name is Benjamin, which is not, Netanyahu isn't even his real name. But this is about an American attack on three sites in Iran.
Iran.
Why are you mentioning Israel? I thought
Exactly.
this was an American operation.
That's right. And then he says, we worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before, and we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. Just
Not to the
reflect.
United States.
Exactly. We worked as a team. So we worked as a team. So he's openly saying we worked as a team. This wasn't a United States operation. It wasn't the United States who made this decision. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before, and we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. So that's it. You didn't, there's no horrible threat to you, to the American people, to the United States. It's a threat to Israel. You undertook this, an unprovoked aggression on behalf of Israel in collaboration with Bibi. No American president would ever speak like this.
No,
So,
no. Well, even the Tonkin Gulf crisis, it was at least an attack, an alleged attack on an American ship.
right, it's an American, yeah, exactly. And we have our ally, and we're helping our ally. But here, is saying, we work together as a team. And what the horrible threat to Israel. Now remember, there's no military alliance between the United States and Israel. This isn't NATO. There's no Article 5 here. So this thing that you've undertaken is based on no formal treaty or anything.
But I decided a long time ago
Yeah.
that I would not let this happen.
Right. This horrible threat to Israel. Why do we care? Why does America care about any horrible threat to Israel?
And did Iran attack Israel? No, the other way around.
The other way around is exactly Israel launched this attack. Then he goes on, I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. So remember, he hasn't said anything yet about the US military. He's talking about the Israeli military for the wonderful
Well,
job.
I mean, wow, if this isn't to reveal him, I want to thank the Israeli military, and then I want to congratulate the great American. I mean, is that the order?
That's the order. That's the order for the job they've done. So, as he was standing there was Rubio, there were Hexeth behind him. No mention of them. No mention of what they've done. Vance was
Well,
standing.
he really couldn't congratulate American diplomacy, could he?
Rubio wearing two hat Rubio.
Yeah, I mean Rubio's height really, just it's so damn. He's just that little guy. What's that
Yeah,
little guy doing behind the president?
yeah.
And they put him behind Trump. Did you notice that?
Yes, that's
That,
right.
I watched them lining up. They didn't establish. I mean, JD Vance, he has to be like on the side. It has to
Right,
be
right.
very, very clear on the side. Okay.
That's right.
The rest of those clowns, they were bumping around each other.
Right, right. It always looks very funny actually when somebody makes this entrance and then you have these three, four people standing behind them who seem to have nothing to say, who just they stand there looking solemn and then they occasionally nod their heads and then they say nothing afterwards and the chief walks out and then essentially they do look like flunkies. One's the Secretary of State, and the other one's Defense Secretary, Vice President, the most
Well,
important figures in the U.S. government. They look like flunkies.
I think they want to look like they're muscle, but they look like sycophants,
Yes,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Need me to shine your shoes, Mr. President, before
that's
we
right.
go on? Okay. Do you need a drink? Need a tissue? Okay.
That's right. I want to thank for the wonderful job they've done, and most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight, and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. So imagine, they've gone in to Iran, you know, basically a kind of a middling regional power at best. Their air defenses had already been substantially
Under
degraded,
sanction.
under sanction, substantially degraded. And he's talking here as if this is the Battle of the Bulge. Yeah,
I'm glad okay, the history nerds are here. I saw this in many, many decades. So I guess because he is nominally a critic of what happened in Iraq. So this is like storming the beaches of
that's right.
Normandy. Yeah.
That's right.
You
Yes.
got to go all the way back to
Yes.
there.
Yes.
Because who's proud of, unopposed, but when American Marines in 1965, wade ashore in Indochina, they were unopposed. Okay.
Right.
So he's
Yeah.
not thinking about that.
Right. Right.
He probably has no knowledge of the Korean War at
Right.
all.
Right.
Okay. So this is, when the Americans won the battle at Stalingrad, I mean,
Right.
it's really of this kind of thinking.
That's
Okay.
right.
We won in Stalingrad.
That's right.
The Russians were there, but we won.
That's right. That's yeah. Um, but this is the way he's talking about. Oh, we haven't seen anything like this in many, many decades. I mean, you always have this really obnoxious way of speaking when Americans sort of pulverize a country in a completely different rank. It's like a heavyweight boxer who beats up a lightweight and says, "Hey, that was a fantastic victory. I really gave him a good thumping."
It's like a guy beating up on a girl,
Yeah,
in the
exactly, exactly. Well, that was really, boy, I kicked some ass tonight. Um, and then it says, hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. A whole bunch of Clausewitzes and von Rundstedt and all the great military thinkers of the past, brilliant military minds.
I don't think there were great military thinkers involved at all. They just
I don't think so either.
Trump ordered an attack on three facilities, and they said,
Which are known. They were known where the facilities were, and Iran's air defenses have been substantially degraded. So I don't see how you need a huge
yeah.
military genius to work this one out.
Well, we do know that when the USS Eisenhower was making a sharp turn, they lost one of those planes. I mean,
Yes,
these are the military minds here. Okay.
yes, yeah. You see, Trump, who never served in the military, he has this obsessive adoration of the military. He really loves them. He loves them. That while. So it's kind of pathetic, really,
Well,
because
it is because, however you want to look at his biography, he's a successful
yeah,
businessman. I'll just let that hang in
right,
the
right,
air,
right,
okay? And he was elected president in 2016,
yeah,
and he came back from political death to be reelected
right,
in 2024. That's a pretty remarkable
yep,
achievement, but
yep,
not the military. And I think he this gnaws at
yep,
him because. And you have to remember his age. He's almost 80 years old, everyone.
yep,
And so, my father's generation, they didn't revere, but they
right,
respected the service. And they
right,
did that not like Fox News
right, right.
garbage.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, exactly. Um, and then he goes on. With all that being said, this cannot continue. What is the this?
Depends what the definition of it means.
That's right, exactly. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran. So either peace or tragedy for Iran. So this is the threat. You beat someone up, and then you say that if you don't immediately now sign whatever it is we want you to sign, things are going to get really bad for you. You've already taken one beating. That's nothing like the beating you're going to take in the future.
But here's another reveal, everyone, and it's right in our face. There will either be peace or there'll be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. So this is all together,
Exactly.
okay?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
this is a
Yeah.
joint operation. Marco Rubio, the first hours on
Yep.
June 13th, that this is we have nothing to
We
do
have
with.
nothing to do. Yep.
I mean, if you have nothing to do with it,
Yep.
why are you mentioning Israel? I mean, I
That's
thought
right.
this was American
That's
operation.
right. He said over the last 8 days. And in fact, that's it. Trump has embraced this and says, "Oh, we were in on this together." But of course, Trump doing this raises all sorts of problems because, first of all, then Rubio, what did that statement of Rubio's mean? Was Rubio lying? Um, and then if you were conducting these negotiations in such bad faith, then why would anyone in his right mind negotiate ever again with you? I mean, why, you've been nuts to negotiate with someone.
Well, I mean, again, I've come up with the saying common sense fallacy. George is absolutely impeccable logic here. But how they're revealing themselves is they don't give a shit.
Right,
Okay. Oh, you didn't like our spiel? Well, whatever. Whatever.
right,
That's your pro it's not on me. That's on you.
right,
But that's all the more geopolitics is serious
right,
business, everyone.
right.
And so you're saying, international law, the
Right.
IAEA, the OPCW, all of this stuff. We don't care.
That's right.
And we don't care primarily because of Israel.
That's right. And this is the thing that when states engage in negotiations, there's usually at least a minimum of trust. I mean, otherwise there is no point in getting around the peace table. I mean, there is at least a minimum expectation that
We want the conflict to come to an end.
that
How it
exactly.
comes to an end,
That's right.
yeah, I mean, we can obviously that's why you're coming. I mean, we're
Right.
definitely having problems coming to a conclusion here.
Right.
I mean, George is right. I mean, there's at least, a iota of good faith.
There has to be. Even when you have these things, like in gangster movies and Sopranos, there is the agreement. There's an agreement beforehand that when they come and these enemies sit down at the table, they're not going to get shot at the table. That there isn't going to be an ambush at the table. There's an understanding here. Yet here, Trump seems to think, oh, that's reasonable. Yeah, we're just going to ambush you. And that's fine as long as we're removing the threat from Israel. That's the way Israel operates. Israel kills its negotiating partners. Um, but when we're at the level of interstate relations, it's a little higher. You expect that one side's the chief negotiator is not going to be shot dead getting into the cab afterwards leaving the meeting. But here he seems to think, oh yeah, we just lied about this. And that's what his claim is. Yeah, we lied about all of this in order to lull the Iranians, and then we thumped them. And we had to do it because of Israel. And then he says, remember, there are many targets left.
Yeah, but I thought it was only about the nuclear
Yes,
cycle.
it's very interesting. It's very, very interesting because today Hexeth, when he was giving his briefing, he said, "Oh, this is very, very limited, very limited. No. He says, oh, this is just, it's a one-off. No, there's not going to be any kind of mission creep or anything else. It was just very limited." But then why are you talking about many targets left? Tonight's was the most difficult of them all by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does
Yeah,
not
but
come,
they weren't military
no, they were
installations.
not.
They were not military
No,
installations. They were not hidden from public view.
no.
And I think I can say with reasonable assurance that like 90% of the people there are civilians.
Yes, yes, yes. No, that's right. Um, but if peace does not come quickly, so again, peace. See, whenever he keeps talking about this peace, and you have to assume that by peace he means that you don't retaliate at all against Israel. You don't attack Israel, because then if you attack Israel, that means there's no peace. And therefore, if you continue to do this, we will go after other targets with precision, speed, and skill. What are these other targets? I mean, he doesn't spell out what are these targets.
Well, I mean, are these assassinations?
He threatened Khamenei with assassination. He said he was clearly threatening Khamenei. So clearly
I
assassinations,
mean, if you're going to do that, then who do you negotiate with?
right? And you remember back in during his first term, he actually threatened to attack Iran's cultural sites. You remember that? That was already some time ago. He talked about Iran's cultural sites that he was willing to attack. So maybe he
I
wants.
don't remember it, but obviously it's true. Okay.
um, Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. So here, as he talks here, you think this doesn't sound very limited. This sounds like that what happened yesterday was just the first step of a prolonged campaign against Iran.
Yeah.
And then there's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense Peace Hegseth, will have a press conference, blah, blah. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. And then he
Okay.
says, I want to just say, we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel. And God bless America. Now, the
You
striking
know,
thing, yeah,
yeah, well, invoking God with violence,
is
that
always very, very creepy.
very, yeah.
But it's also strange that he says God bless Israel before he says God bless America.
Well, he's obviously going after the Christian Zionist here. That's
Yes.
obviously what his appeal is.
But it's very strange, even so. I've never heard an American president talk about God bless Israel.
I've never heard an American president, God bless any other country.
No,
Ever.
no. And I don't even know what he means, God bless the Middle East. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, I mean, who's generating the violence in the Middle East? Who's been doing it for decades?
Yes. So there's a God bless Israel and then God bless, but it's just peculiar that you put God bless America at the end of it. He's talked much more during this very terse announcement about Israel than about anything else. He's mentioned Israel several times um, in this announcement. Um, Hegseth, his only mention of Hegseth is this once. Oh, he's going to be showing doing this conference early tomorrow morning. Um, but Bibi Netanyahu, he gets much more coverage. So that was this. So this was no explanation of anything at all.
None.
This it was just an announcement of something that he had done. And the American people who don't follow these things very closely would have probably have been a little baffled by this.
Well,
What
particularly,
happened? What's this
particularly
about?
what was this about? Well, this was all done for Israel. I mean, that's one thing you got to give Trump. He's a lot more transparent. He tells you. I mean, why George? We should call it the Why podcast because we keep asking why.
Why? Right. Why?
We know who it was done for, but we don't know why
Yeah.
the United States is involved in all of this.
And notice what he's done here. He hasn't mentioned anything. He hasn't even talked about this in the nuclear weapons program. He hasn't talked about any intelligence that we had, really dramatic intelligence that
Yeah, I
came
mean, at
our
least
way.
Colin Powell, made a complete
Exactly.
ass out of himself.
All of that. George W. Bush with his yellow cake. There's nothing. He made no mention of any of that. Instead, he went back 20 years with something that was going on during the U.S. occupation of Iraq. 20 years? You're justifying what you did by something that allegedly happened 20 years ago? Um,
It's
uh,
also George has mentioned, but it's worth accenting. Where is the United Nations Charter?
yeah.
Where is the international consent? I mean, as wrong-headed and tragic as the Iraq caper was, I mean, they checked all the
They
boxes.
did.
Okay, I mean, if you wanted to go along with the lie, they gave you ample reasons to go along
That's right.
with the lie.
They presented exactly. They presented that fake intelligence, and then your Tony Blair with his dodgy dossier, all of that, and they did go before the UN Security Council. It just so happened that it was made clear you're never going to get the support of the UN Security Council. He did none of that here. What's the rationale? What's the legal basis for attacking Iran? Oh, they keep, oh, the IAEA, they published this troubling report. There's nothing in the IAEA to suggest that Iran was moving towards weaponizing its
Well,
uranium.
and they came out afterwards and said, no, we weren't saying that. We didn't say
Right,
that. Okay.
right.
But see, the damage had already been done. What that ridiculous report, I mean,
Right.
it's recycling just nonsense that we've known for decades. They gave it the stamp of approval, and they knew they were doing that.
That's right. No,
You know
I
what?
agree.
I mean, how many members are on the board?
No, I don't. Yeah.
You told us once it was like 13 and like 9 or
Oh yes,
Western.
yeah. Oh, that's right. It was yeah. They had that vote on the board. Yes, something like yeah, 13. I think it was 13. Yeah. But this and they got about what 11. The vote was 11-2.
All
Yeah, the
vassals of the
usual
United
suspects.
States.
Um, but there was nothing in that. They just simply said, "Oh, Iran isn't complying with its obligations under the Non-Proliferation Treaty." Okay, where does it say that that means Iran needs to get bombed?
Look, everyone, during the the lifespan of arms control agreements, SALT that turned into START, and we have ABM, all of these treaties. Both sides during the course of those agreements say you're cheating. No, no,
Right,
no. Let me explain to you. Let me show you.
right, right,
That's it happened all of the
right,
time, particularly with ABM,
right.
because they said, "Oh, we think we found something
That's
in
right. That's right.
Kazakhstan." Oh, no, no, that it's no, that's not what you think it is. And then it was shut down. Okay,
Right,
yeah, okay. I
right,
mean, these type of things happen all the time. That's why you have these mechanisms to
right,
negotiate,
right,
to give your side a
right,
hearing.
right.
They subverted that
That's
completely.
right. I mean, and of course, Trump did that in the case of the INF treaty when he claimed that the Russians were cheating. The Russians denied that they were cheating, but rather than try to resolve the issue, decide, are they cheating? Are they not cheating? Trump just simply walked out from the INF treaty. But you're absolutely right.
And
There's a
walked to the
mechanism in place to
JCPOA.
resolve these claims.
It was a bad deal. Well, how was it bad?
Right.
How was it bad?
Right.
Then why didn't your administration try to improve it? If it was such a bad deal,
Right.
what would be a good deal? No,
Right.
but a good deal is no deal for these people.
That's right. A good deal is no deal. Exactly. So that was his announcement, and then he just walked off without taking questions. And then today he sends this out, all uppercase. Any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed tonight. Thank you. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. So here is, issuing this threat that, if you retaliate in any way, shape, or form against the United States, who had done this on behalf of Israel, because you still haven't presented how this is, in any way had anything to do with the United States, since there's no way in any fantasy world that Iran can pose any kind of a threat to the United States. So you did this in Israel, and now you say any retaliation by Iran, and you're going to meet with a full force of the United States. Now, and we were talking about this earlier today. Iran is in a very tight spot. I mean, it's very difficult for Iran's leaders to know what to do, because obviously the according to the UN Charter, they are entitled to self-defense and they are entitled to retaliate. But now Trump has clearly threatened Iran with severe consequences, and I've no doubt that those will be real. I mean, that the Trump
Oh,
will indeed
yeah.
retaliate with very severe consequences. So that's that one option. The other option, of course, is to do nothing. But the problem with doing nothing, that doesn't mean Trump will leave you alone. The United States is not going to leave Iran alone. Israel is not going to leave Iran
Appetite
alone.
comes with the eating.
Exactly. Exactly, because we
Well, I
know.
mean, this is something we discussed earlier, and now we have a little bit more time to flesh flesh it out here. The way I look at it right now, Iran is not going to take a certain bait. Okay, I think that, and I don't know if it's going to work. As George has pointed out, they're in a very tight spot. I think they will continue their assault on Israel. They will not attack American troops in the region. Not yet, okay? Eventually, they may have no choice. But as I pointed out to you earlier and our friend Mark, I think they want the Trump administration to pay the costs. And that's a little bit more nuanced, is there's been reports, again, it's hard to verify anything these days, of Iranian vessels, not tr cargo and things like that, moving closer and closer to the Straits of Hormuz. Okay, oil price. The Trump administration will feel that. Then there is inflation. Okay, and that is going to be. I mean, that's no. That's not symmetrical or parallel to what is already happening. Their country was attacked by the most massive non-nuclear ordinance ever invented by man. Okay, but I think that keeping them separate, I don't know if you can do it for very long. I'm not a military guy, but I think that the Iranians, first of all, they don't want to overtly take it because it'll just say, oh, these savages, they attacked American troops. And they're not going to do that, okay? Anyway, we've seen that they have the capacity to do it. They fired on an American base into a field of dirt just to show everybody we know where your base is and we know where you are and we can hurt you. But they didn't do it. I don't think they're going to do it now. And that will infuriate the Israelis and that will infuriate the Americans because they have a certain playbook and it's regime change. That's really and another thing is, and I'll throw it back to you, George, is that covert operations. If that's what they're going to put their money, and they're putting a lot of their money on their chips on covert operations, terrorism, car bombs, blowing up cafes. That's where they're going to put their money, I think.
No, I agree with you. I don't think they're going to attack, at least for the time being. I don't think they're going to attack any American bases, and particularly they want to maintain good relations with the other Gulf states. They have, the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, have all condemned this attack on Iran. So they maintain at the moment cordial relations with them. If you attack the bases there, then that's going to end. They also don't want to provoke and obviously a savage American attack. The problem they have is that this war with Israel is going to continue. Israel is not going to let
Exactly.
up. Israel is
Exactly.
going to keep attacking Iran. Iran is going to retaliate against Israel. And then the Mark Levins and the Sean Hannitys and Ben Shapiro's and the rest of the whole Israel first crowd will start screaming that Israel is under attack and that we have to deal with the core problem of the Middle East, which is the mullahs in Tehran, and they're going to be absolutely pressuring Trump to deal with the mullahs. Now, Trump's claim here, well, that the administration, oh, we're not doing regime change, we're not doing regime change. Well, we don't have to believe. That's what they're saying today. They have to say this, so that doesn't mean they're going to stick to that promise. And I think that there's going to be mounting pressure and saying, look, Israel is under attack. Look at Tel Aviv. Look at all the ruins of Tel Aviv. We have to deal with the mullahs. And I think that whichever way it goes, whatever they decide, you know, Iran is in the crosshairs, and that this isn't coming to an end. This is just the first step of a major onslaught on Iran. The question then is, what does Iran do in those circumstances? Is there anyone at all who can help Iran out? And that I think that's a difficult one, except for, and I think this is what you're saying is important about the inflation, oil prices, and public opinion. I'm not sure public opinion is going to go along with this. It's not popular in the United States. Trump hasn't done any of the groundwork preparing the American public for it. They don't understand it. They don't see what Iran has done wrong. And if this continues, and then America's now embarked on a regular basis of bombing Iran, then I think that there's going to be serious political problems for the
I
administration.
absolutely agree with you. I think that is the trump card that the Iranians are holding close to their vest because what right before a YouGov or something, I had it.
I think it was Economist YouGov.
Yeah, there you go. Right. Only 16% of across the political spectrum of Americans support at that time, a
Right,
military strike on
right.
Iran. No, I think that, see, we're right, I think in theory, but it's how much of a beating can you take? Okay.
Right.
Particularly, I mean, if you're going to, I mean, Tehran is a huge, huge urban area.
Yeah.
Okay. And everybody, we learned, it was learned in the Second World War, aerial campaigns don't win wars.
Yeah.
They don't.
Yep.
They cause enormous suffering and destruction and
Yep.
create generations of resentment. Okay. But what are they going to do? Turn it into Gaza?
Yep. Yep.
You know,
I don't.
and you know what, everyone? Turning it into Gaza will take a lot of bombing,
Yep.
an enormous amount. It'll be like rolling thunder over an urban area. And even then, because of the nature of the internet, we're going to see a good
Yep.
part of it.
Yep.
We're going to see a good part of it. And another thing we haven't addressed here, and it's the weekend, even though one of the most devastating events in modern history has just happened. We haven't gotten a whole lot of reaction. Twitter's a little quiet. The usual suspects are out there, okay? But people are going to start coming to realization that they're at war. Now, another thing that people have brought up, the sleeper cells and all that. I don't buy into that. I don't buy into that at
No,
all. Maybe in the region, yes, but in America, I don't buy it.
no,
I don't.
I don't think so. And I think even from the few statements that have been made, Hezbollah said that they're not going to do much. I mean, they're much diminished from what they were. The Houthis may do something. I don't think that's going to be the real problem. I think the real problem is that Israel is going to continue with this war. Iran isn't going to sign any kind of an agreement with the United States. If that's what Trump is planning on, oh, they better come to a peace treaty. There's not going to be any agreement. That's out. So therefore, the pressure is going to build for Trump to finish the job, to go in and finish the
Finish the. What does that mean?
exactly. I mean, get rid of the
But
mullahs.
I agree with you
Right.
100% to finish the job. But when you say
Right.
finish the job,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
that's more wish than thinking. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing is for sure, you know, Trump has been very duplicitous about all of this. I mean, to the point, it's so transparently duplicitous. Um, but he knows he's on the clock.
yes.
He knows he's on the clock because we're going to start, a lot of people that were critical of this have only been given more ammunition.
Yep.
Sorry for the pun, but they're going to be more reason to say, now what? Now what are you going to do?
That's right.
I may be completely wrong, but Trump is going to be talking about this for the rest of his presidency.
I think so. You see, he doesn't have any allies in Europe. The Europeans, they've been mild in their kind of few statements they've made, but they're not supporting this. They're not. They seem very anxious about this.
Well,
They're
why
not.
is it? Because they don't want to give Trump a win? I mean,
Maybe they don't want to give Trump a win, but they're nervous. They don't know what's going to happen in the Middle East. I mean,
well, we know where the migration flows will go.
migrate, all of that. But you don't have your coalition of the willing on this one. Even Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer knows that there's no way that he can join in this. And then in the United States as a whole, the Democrats have seized on this. They know they've got an issue on their hands. All this time they've been fiddling around without any issue. They've got an issue here. They've got the peace issue. Always a winning issue. Hey, we're against war, and they're all now united on this. They're all of them attacking Trump. This is illegal. This is unconstitutional. Trump has not explained what he's doing. That's a problem. Of course, the Republicans will stick by him, but
Oh, let's see. Let's
let's see.
see.
Now they've already
Let's see.
Thomas Massey is come out against it. Marjorie Taylor Greene not at all happy. So you're right. Let's see. At the moment, he's the commander in chief. You've got to support the commander in chief. But as time goes on, I mean, the problem is that this reinforces suspicions people have had about Trump. He's a con man. No one really wanted to believe that he's a con man.
Yeah, but we just have to get down to demographics here. The reddest of red states They provide the majority of fighting personnel and veterans.
Right.
Okay, you don't mess with those. Don't
No,
mess
I
with
don't think so. Yeah.
don't mess with those people. No,
Yep.
no.
Um,
That's why finish it off, whatever that
right.
means,
Right.
and time. Because I tend to think, again, it's only hours into this here. Um, Iran is a very complicated country. It's a lot more sophisticated than anyone in the West. They never tell you, okay?
Right.
I encourage people to take a look at Max Blumenthal's very lengthy video of his visit to Tehran. It's very eye-opening. They're not going to crush these people. They're not going to crush their spirit. Nobody wants the son of the
Right.
Shah back. I mean, it's
That's right.
ridiculous. I mean, who, uh, Alan Dershowitz is somebody to marvel because his constitutional reasoning sometimes I'm enthralled by. I'm
Right.
just like,
Right.
it's a smart guy. And then on these things, it's like this, you're out to lunch.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
The caricature of Iran is going to be destroyed through all of this.
Yeah,
Why?
that's right. And Iran will soon enough emerge as an international martyr. Is under attack. The United States, this overwhelming military superpower, keeps thumping Iran. That's not a good look. People, very, very quickly, sympathy moves. I mean, look, remember during Vietnam, international sympathy switched to North Vietnam. That was a communist regime. And suddenly everyone loved Ho Chi Minh. This figure, an all-time figure from the whole Communist International era, suddenly became this international hero because, hey, you're getting bombed by the United States. I mean, it just doesn't look good. It's like,
Well,
why?
also, I mean, this is something George and I have often touched upon. But I mean, if you look at at this like a mega trend, the global South sees it, and this is something George and I have talked about when it comes to Russia and Ukraine. Is that I think George, you're the one that pointed it out to me first. Is that Russia has taken on the entire Western world,
Right,
okay, and it's still standing,
right,
okay. And so the global South is going to see the same thing. Iran, they didn't attack
right,
anybody,
right,
okay? And Israel's currency in the world it's evaporated. It's
right,
just gone,
right.
okay?
Exactly.
So again, this is a very important issue for the global South. It's more like, do you need any more confirmation,
Right,
folks?
right,
Really?
right. Right. No, that's right. Um, Now, in terms of say domestically, is this um, is this the end of the road for Tulsi Gabbard? I mean, is that the end of her career? I mean, I
Well,
tend to think it is. I mean, I think she's now been slapped down twice by Trump. You can't really survive in those circumstances. She
It depends. I'm not sure what the political calculus is. I mean, if Tulsi, you just keep your mouth shut and you can keep your job.
That's the calculus.
No,
But
well, I'm saying that's one possibility.
well, except
These people are so maniacal, George. Maybe they keep her around, and when things go south, they say it's her fault.
well,
They need a fall guy. They'll need a
right.
fall guy. Maybe they'll keep her, curate her, put her on ice, like Tony would say, and just see who knows. Who knows?
I,
I mean,
I,
George, it's fair enough to fantasize about this. I mean, this whole thing is
right,
a tragic fantasy that's
right,
become real.
right. That's right. But the thing was that clearly Trump is annoyed with her. Why exactly is annoyed with her? I mean, obviously, her testimony in March undercut what he was doing. I mean, if he's been planning this for some time, then that testimony was undercutting him. Um, and then she recorded that video, it was a few days ago, about Hiroshima. Clearly that annoyed him. It's like she's showboating. Um, if you slap down your intelligence chief twice in public in this disdainful way, I don't think you survive. I just it just doesn't happen like that. Not with
It,
Trump anyway. I
it's
think he's
it.
waiting for the moment to give her the boot.
I think it's interesting because we've already talked about how it was choreographed, when he had Vance and he had Rubio and Hegseth, they were like mannequins. Like,
Yes,
don't irritate the boss.
that's right.
Don't
Exactly. Yeah.
irritate him,
Right.
okay?
Right.
And maybe they had Tulsi Gabbard on their mind.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think that, you will use and abuse a person as much as you can to your advantage. And once it is of no value, then you cast it aside. Okay. Um, I can't even imagine what her resignation if she is forced to resign. I supported the president all the way.
Right,
That's why
right.
I'm
No, but she
resigning
she
now.
missed the opportunity to resign now. She clung on, and the problem with what she did was that she used the word specious kind of lawyerly language to say, well, what I said in March is perfectly compatible with what the president is saying now. That is so dishonest. Everyone can say, no, 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 you never said that. You're trying to weasel your way out of it by using this lawyerly language. And that's not what you were saying. You didn't say, oh, Iran is just a few weeks away from having a nuclear weapon. Or, well, I said, if they decide to to go develop, you didn't say that. If they decide to develop a nuclear weapon, they're only weeks away. You said that they haven't made that decision. So
Well,
by doing this, she's discredited herself, and therefore she can't resign now in a huff. I think she's just waiting to get the boot, much like Jeff Sessions kind of was waiting in his first term to get
and
the
that was
boot.
grueling. That was
Yes,
But it also raises, I think, a far more important question is what is the value of the intelligence community at all to Trump?
none,
None.
none, none. He has no other. He was listening to Israeli intelligence. His intelligence was what was provided to him by Netanyahu. And as we talked about last week, Netanyahu has no new intelligence. It's the same stuff has been going on 6 months, 12 months, 13 months. And we've been hearing that for 30 years. He had no new intelligence. So Trump doesn't listen to his own intelligence, but he listens to Mossad. And again, and then of course
Well,
raises.
no, I'm just gonna say is that we're really kind of in a different discursive environment because I think George will agree with me. All through our adult lives in talking about geopolitics, I always kind of have to, give a little bit of slack to the Israelis, okay? Oh, we don't hold them up to the same stand.
Right,
It's a rough neighborhood, and the Holocaust, and that's changing, George. Now people can just say it.
right,
You could just say, why are we doing this for a foreign
right,
state, a little state called Israel,
right,
6,000 miles away?
right,
I know that sounds kind of surprising to some, but even 2, 3 years ago, we're very careful
right,
and not to say that, okay?
right.
I mean, I've known over the years through my program a lot of Middle East experts and off air, off the cuff, that just say you can talk about Iran all you want, but don't talk about Israel all you want.
Yep.
Now you can.
Yes.
There could be consequences, don't get me wrong, and there might be.
Yes. Well, one of the consequences is they're criminalizing anti-Semitism. I mean, so that's one of the consequences. Um, but then that raises the next question, which is where does MAGA go? Where
Yeah.
does America first go after this?
Well, we're gonna find out. The critics of MAGA have called it a cult of a leader. Well, we're gonna find out. It's gonna be tested.
Yeah.
It's gonna be tested. Okay.
Yeah, because um, this is so flagrantly. It's not like, oh, he got sucked into a war because of some
Oh,
9/11 event. This is flagrantly in your face pursuing the agenda of another state. I mean, it's like, you can't get more um, America lost than this. George W. Bush never did this.
Well, who would have thought it'd be the Republicans that would be focusing on their pronouns, okay? Because this we comes up way too often. I mean, Tucker Carlson caught Tel Aviv Ted using the we,
Right.
and a lawyer of he was my best student at
My best student at Harvard. Yes, yes.
Harvard,
That's
okay?
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
These people should be, I mean, under normal circumstances, they are very fastidious about language. I mean, and George and I have marveled at jurists with their judgments. I mean, some of them are just so beautifully written. It's prose, okay?
Right,
Ted Cruz is supposed to be one of those
right,
guys,
right.
okay?
Yes,
And
yes,
it slips, and but Donald Trump, it didn't slip at all. It's
right.
just in your face.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And of course, then it raises this question we keep asking and we can't get an answer to is why? This is not a religious person. He's not a he's not a Christian Zionist. Never been particularly interested in Jewish things before. Why has he done what other presidents hadn't done? Why that Bill Clinton didn't do, George W. Bush didn't do, Obama didn't do, Biden didn't do? Why has
And
he?
Biden is a Christian Zionist.
Yeah, that's right. He calls himself as I'm a
I
Zionist. Yeah,
the why question, I don't know. Did they have something on him? That's what a lot of people say. Okay, I'm not going to go that far. I think if there's something you didn't know about Donald Trump, it would have been found out a long time.
that's what I don't think that either. Exactly. We know about it, and we already know so much. Much of it not very flattering about Trump. What else? Can you
Well,
know?
George, maybe legacy. Somebody told him, "You're the real 21st century Churchill."
Right.
Maybe that's it. That as crazy as that is, maybe they got this the flattery got to him and just said, "Yeah, I'm, you know, invoking God."
Yeah.
I find that very offensive. Okay,
It is.
it
It is.
it's so inappropriate. I mean, if you were saving the children of Gaza and you want to invoke God, I'll go along with it. Okay, but this is justifying, legitimizing mass destruction and terror and murder. Okay. It's very offensive.
Yes.
So maybe that's it. Mr. Trump, you only have X number of months left, and this is going to leave your mark forever. Donald Trump, you will.
It's very interesting because Trump, he's never really made up his mind. Does he want to be a kind of a peacemaker, a Nobel Peace Prize laureate, or does he want to be a warlord? And he kind of, goes from one to another, not really sure which he wants to be. And I think he's decided that he likes the idea of being a
I agree.
warlord.
I agree.
And so
I agree.
is marching into rooms with bemedaled generals and giving out orders. So I think that appeals to him. And then yeah,
Yeah,
and
well, George is right because look, okay, let's look at Ukraine, Russia. Oh, George and I can go into the nitty-gritty on every. So you know who I'm talking about. He has a new 17-point piece. You know who I'm talking about, okay? Okay. Now it's 17 points, okay?
17, yes,
Well, Moses only had 10,
right.
okay? I'm ripping that off somebody. What was it? The French president, who said it? Clouseau, was it? He said when Woodrow Wilson came out with his 14-point peace plan, and he said, "For God's sake, Moses only had 10." Okay, but I mean, I think George is right. Look at the peace proposals or end of war proposals from
Right.
the Russians and the Ukrainians. You got to get into the dirt
Right.
there. You got
Right.
to get into the nitty
Right.
gritty. You got to know the background. You got to know the history of it all, the motivations. You got to know something about the your interlocutors.
Right.
George, that's called work.
It's called work. It's called work, and that's why the model, and we've always talked about this. The model was the Nixon administration, and it was a very lengthy, complicated diplomatic procedure, and they tried all sorts of things with the Soviet Union, with China, the Paris talks. Then they mounting an offensive, and then so on. I mean, it was until they finally kind of put together some kind of a deal. But that, as you say, that was a lot of talk and a lot of negotiations before they could bring that to an end. Trump doesn't have any of that. So he's saying, "Oh, I got this fantastic victory," but it's as anyone would figure out, this is just the first step. I mean,
Well,
this is
apparently,
that's not going to end here.
it's reported is that he watched the bombing in real time. Okay. I don't know if that's true,
Yeah.
but I mean, that attracts and stimulates the worst basic
Yeah.
elements of the human condition:
Right.
violence,
Yeah.
um, feeling a sense of
Right.
impunity.
Right.
I mean, yeah, it speaks to the worst of us, okay? Because the human condition's a pretty nasty condition. I
Right.
mean, we keep killing each other on massive scale. It gets worse and worse. We
Right.
don't, as a species, we don't learn very. We can
No.
fix things, we can put things in the sky, but we don't really know how to deal with each other very well.
No.
That hasn't changed
No, that
much.
hasn't changed exactly. You know, we read Thucydides, and you think, well, he's like a contemporary author. You think, what?
Yeah, yeah.
That's a couple of
Well,
thousand.
I mean, if you could change the language a little bit, take a passage from Thucydides and put it on the front page of the New York Times, and you'd say, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's right. So, well,
That works. I
not much
understand
has
that.
changed since then. So, um, so yeah, that's a remarkable feature of humanity. But what's also interesting, and here, and this goes back to this is of what happens now to MAGA, is that the spin masters and JD Vance, he's going to be doing a lot of spinning because he's so smooth on television. He's going to tell us, no, 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 this isn't at all like the Iraq invasion. No, 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 this was very, very limited. All we limited. No, there's no regime change. No, 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 no. Last thing we're interested in is regime change. The point is, that's what they always say. Obama, on the day that Obama launched the bombing of Libya, also an unprovoked attack, he said this isn't regime change. And then he and Cameron and whoever was the president at the time, I think it was Sarkozy,
Cozy.
wrote an op-ed which was published in all the European newspapers specifically. This is not regime change. No, we're not doing regime change. Everybody says this. Just like, at the time of the Iraq invasion, George W. Bush, this is not nation building. We are not doing nation building. No nation building. No nation building. They just think if they keep repeating this, somebody's going to actually believe them when they know
Well,
that's exactly what you're doing.
if you're saying it's not nation building, if you're saying it's not regime change, then it is
Of
nation
course
building
it is.
and it is regime change. Okay. I
Don't
mean,
have to, exactly. If it's obvious that that's what you're doing, then you don't have to repeat it. But that's what they're repeating. No, 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 this is not regime change. We read out what Trump said. That looks to me exactly like the blueprint for a regime change. Unless the Iranians do what we want them to do right now, sign some kind of a deal, capitulate completely to Israel, this war against Iran will continue, and we're going to hit you a lot harder than we hit you yesterday.
it's in the Israeli press, of course, they're ebullient about what's going on. But it was interesting. Okay, so the fuel cycle, that check. Now for the missiles. Now we got to get rid of the missiles. See, the appetite comes with the eating.
Yep.
Okay. And what we've focused on here is that the Israeli-Iran war is continuing. Trump's strategy can't allow that to happen
Right.
because it's we.
Right. This week.
We.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
um, so Rolling Thunder, when's it start? George, it's already being planned,
All right.
obviously.
Yeah. No question.
I mean, it's let's let's recognize the truth. It's a big job.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got a lot of people involved. You got a lot of planes in the air.
That's
Okay.
right. That's right. That's right. And these missile attacks on one another will continue because Israel wants them to continue. Israel wants regime change. And Israel wants, therefore, the continuation of this war because Trump has said that, and therefore, if Iran doesn't agree to peace, then we're going to hit Iran. And that's it. This is the blank check. Trump has now given Israel the blank check. You know,
And Netanyahu and his cohort, I'm sure they're comfortably ensconced in a very comfortable bunker, very deep in the ground, air conditioning, wet bar. Because these people are, at least he isn't particularly religious.
yeah,
Um, Israel is getting hit hard, everybody. I mean, you can't hide that, okay? I mean, Al Jazeera is not my go-to, okay? But twice a day I look at the top of the hour, okay? And they show a lot of footage. I mean, Israel's getting pounded,
yep,
all right?
yep,
And but Netanyahu needs that to
right,
keep this war going. Think
yep,
about the calculus of people.
right.
Wow, that's
That's
amazing.
that's right.
Okay,
That's right. That's right.
I need demanding regime change. You can continue to pull at my people.
Yep,
Okay.
right.
Well, everybody, have you heard anything about the hostages in Gaza? Huh? Oh, they recovered three bodies.
Right. Yeah,
Okay. I don't know what the count is now. It's 20 something it's
right.
down to. What
Yeah.
about them? Nope, it
Nope,
doesn't
no,
matter.
no, nothing at all.
Matter of fact, the slaughter of people, starving people trying to get aid, it hasn't stopped. It's actually accelerated. Some days it's really, over 100, almost 200 people a day, every single day, every single day. Just think about that, everyone. You're involved. You initiate a conflict with a massive country that you do not border. You're in a exchange of missiles back and forth, but you have to finish the job in Gaza.
Right,
It's like the forced marches at
right,
the Second World War. The war
right,
is lost, but
right.
forced death marches must continue. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
It is. And and you have to say that Israel has kind of masterful because they're the masters of their propaganda. They're masters of changing the subject. They always know how to change the subject. And the subject, and this is something the Arabs, said from the 1940s and 1950s. NASA said that you have to deal with the Palestinian problem, the Palestinian refugee problem. You got the UN resolution told you that you have to deal with this problem. But Israel has been masterful at changing the subject. Oh, the problem is NASA. The problem
We
is
have no
we,
partner for
no
negotiation. That
part
was
of the
a different one.
negotiations, and then all of them, all
The
the
Palestinians don't know how to say yes.
they don't know how to say yes, and then you have these terrible leaders like Nasser, Yasser Arafat, Assad, Saddam Hussein, the Hamas, the Iranian leaders. Always they churn this stuff out, and then of course all their American agents, repeat this. Oh yeah, this is terrible. The Saddam Hussein. It was always the Saddam Hussein. That's the problem, Saddam Hussein. We've kind of forgotten all that, so now it's the Iran. That's the problem. But even if you get this regime change in Tehran, you still got the same basic problem. You haven't addressed the Palestinian issue. And as long as you haven't addressed that, then you're not going to have, there's not going to be peace and stability. But it's just masterful at how they succeed in changing the subject. Well, with all their Mark Levins and Hannity's, and present Israel as this little victim, constantly being beset by bullies. Like Trump said, Iran is the bully. It's like you get a feeling when that statement was drafted for him in Tel Aviv. It's like here, this is going to be your statement.
I fully believe it was drafted by.
Bibi kind of you want to read this out. I'm sure it wasn't his own speechwriters who actually wrote that.
No, we all know when Trump is speaking, when it's his words or it's not his words, okay? Soleimani, he wouldn't bring that up,
Right.
okay? And as a matter of fact, I personally think that was a way to poke Netanyahu was poking him in the eye because I know you were pissed off about that. Okay,
Right.
I know you've mentioned because when Trump was out of power, he said, "Oh yeah, you know that
Yeah.
they led me on that one," and then they make him repeat it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really maniacal. It's really maniacal.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But like
No.
I said at the very beginning, this is something the Israelis have wanted for 30, 40 years, and they never could get it, but they got it with this guy.
They got it with this guy. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why with this guy?
Yeah. Yeah. Why
You
the
know, it also is very interesting. Where's the military expertise? I mean, where are the people in the military say, you know, we did this in Iraq and it was, you know,
yeah.
it was a disaster for us. It was a disaster for the military. It's not the disaster for people that back these things. As a matter of fact, many of the people that had the drumbeat for war in Iraq are still with us. They were rewarded lavishly,
Right.
second home in the Hamptons.
Right.
Okay, I mean, there's no downside. Okay, yeah, peace is hard. Peace is really hard to attain. War, let it rip.
That's right.
And I think that's Trump said, yeah, this is I feel more comfortable doing this.
That's
Okay.
right.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey, can we watch Patton again last? You know, we watched it last. Let's watch it again. Okay. Ice Station Zebra. Let's go watch
That's
that.
it. Well, that's right. But see,
Did you see that film, Ice
yes,
Station
I
Zebra?
did. I saw. Yeah, I saw those.
It wasn't so great, but it's
No, it
okay.
wasn't. But it was kind of, I was very young when I saw it. It was kind it's a lot of fun, when you're 12 years old. I mean,
Yeah.
you really enjoy it. Yeah.
It's like, what was it? Red Dawn. Remember that one?
Yeah. Yeah.
That
That I
was an
haven't seen. Yeah.
awful film,
Yeah.
but when
Yeah.
you're 12 years old, it's
Yeah.
cool. It's so
So,
true.
that's right. So, Bill Clinton, he's saying, yeah, Netanyahu was trying to he said this, Bill Clinton, oh, Netanyahu wanted me to do this also, basically to attack Iran. And then, but, even Bill Clinton said, I don't think this is a great idea. And this is what's just so remarkable. He thinks, hey, I did everything, no other president did this. Reagan didn't do this. Bush didn't do this. Bush younger didn't do this. Clinton didn't do this. Obama didn't do this. I did it. Well, okay, now you've got a real dud on your hands. And this is, I think, this is going to completely overshadow his presidency. The Democrats now have an issue, and it's an issue on which they can mobilize for an election. Because hey, we want peace, and they say, this is a president. He promised peace, and is leading us to war. That's definitely a mobilizing issue in an election.
Yeah, it can be because there's a lot of wrinkles in
Oh,
this one.
okay. Mhm.
Because you already said it. You already said it, and I'm not sure it's going to cut the mustard. This is an illegal war against international law. This was unprovoked. Um, I haven't said Israel yet, George.
Mhm. Yep.
And that's it. That's going to be
Right.
they have to navigate because the Democratic Party is just as much in bed with the lobby,
I absolutely,
and it's going to be very, very difficult for them to do.
I agree with you entirely. But in politics, politics rewards dishonesty and disingenuousness, and they're going to avoid the whole issue of Israel, and they're just going to focus on the illegality and unconstitutionality and the dangerousness and the recklessness. They'll focus on all of that. But remember, Chuck Schumer was goading Trump into attacking Israel. He said, hey, they don't call him Taco. Trump always chickens out for nothing. Hey, you're going to just let the Iranians off. So Schumer, you can't get more slavishly obsequious towards Israel than Schumer. So that's why you're absolutely right.
Well,
They're going to avoid mentioning the subject of Israel.
well, I'm glad you brought the Schumer up because Schumer he put up a trial balloon, and I think they're analyzing how that balloon flew, or like another metaphor, putting a flag up the pole to see who salutes. Remember when Schumer said, "This is bad for Israel."
Yeah.
This is bad for now. That's a trajectory. I think they say, look, this, Trump should have because our president Obama he made a deal and there was peace, okay, and Trump walked away from it, and it would that deal was good for Israel, maybe not for Netanyahu, okay.
Right,
It'll go for the personality.
right,
So
right,
that's a way. It's a segue. Say this is actually bad for Israel.
right.
That's and I think that can cut ice with people.
Yeah.
I think it can.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think so. I mean, the only reason I brought up the Democrats is that I think they see an issue here. And it's an issue, one of the reasons why I think Trump has enjoyed the success that he's enjoyed is that the attacks on him have been so useless and so ridiculous. They only help to strengthen him. I mean, imagine devoting, I don't know how many years to trying to prove that he was working for the Kremlin. I mean, can you imagine
Yeah.
anything more idiotic than
Yep.
that? And of course, it helped to secure greater popularity for Trump, and then trying to put him in prison for 700 years made him a martyr. So they just seized on the worst possible issues to use against Trump, and so Trump it just helped propel him. Now I think they've got a good issue.
Yeah, but the Democratic Party brand is so tarnished, right? It's in tatters right now. There was this I saw some reports on No Kings. There's going to be another one, okay? As it was pointed out to me by somebody that is very much plugged in, um, let's make up a figure. 100,000 people show up, and there is a Palestinian flag, and someone says, "Hey, put the flag down.
Right.
Put the flag down." There's a lot of alchemy that needs to be done here, okay? Because, oh, you're an agent of Hamas,
Yep.
okay?
Yeah.
Which, has currency,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
People
Yeah.
are afraid,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
You're right. George has said this since the start of this podcast, is that being anti-war is popular.
Right.
It works.
Right.
Works. It influences enough people.
Right.
Okay. Is it a primary thing? No. But on the margins, it can make a difference.
Yeah.
2016, it made
He
a
made a
difference.
difference. And think about George W. Bush. By 2006, people really had turned against the war, and Bush did very poorly in the midterms, and then of course in 2008 there was a big Democratic sweep with Obama, and they got the 60 votes. They got the whatever the filibuster-proof Senate. That was a remarkable thing. So that was in the case of George W. Bush. Trump is, I think, more vulnerable than that because he had run on a very completely different platform. If he'd been a John McCain, he wouldn't be vulnerable on this. He's vulnerable on this. I mean, he said this. Even this, the Iranian foreign minister in his announcement today, he brought up the subject. Oh, Trump ran as a peace candidate. He promised his supporters that he would pursue peace. So he's betrayed his own supporters. This was the Iranian foreign minister. If he said that, a lot of people are going to say that, hey, you promised this. You're explicitly the peace candidate. And this is, this is what you've done. I think that's going to have resonance.
I do too. And you can't take one example and pretend that it's a trend. But when he made his ridiculous statement, we went through every single word. Didn't take a question, just walked away.
Right.
And prior to the American attack, and again, I'm not a psychologist, George isn't, okay? But he's been in the public eye in our face for a
Right.
decade now.
Right.
Those few days leading up to it, he didn't seem to be passionate
Right.
about it.
Right.
Okay, we've never seen him do that.
No, I've never seen him do
Or
that.
maybe he had a steak and he was trying to clear his teeth. I don't know, but we'll see how he takes the questions because
Right.
the Democrats, using the formula George has presented with us, perfectly legitimate. It's
Right.
perfectly legitimate. Okay,
Right.
we'll get to the heart of the matter. That the Israel angle. We'll see. But
Right.
I mean, I have ample questions for him. But you said on this, and then you
Right.
said on the. I mean,
Right.
it's the public record. Okay,
Right.
and then you come out with we.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that the Democrats should. I mean, and I think this is where I think you're absolutely right. We'll see how much courage they have, because what the Democrats should now do, yeah, is well, let's have congressional hearings. Let's hear about any new intelligence that you heard in the last few weeks that caused you to change your view. We had this briefing. I mean, after all, this is a serious person who came to brief us on your intelligence assessment. Now you're taking a drastically different view. We need to have congressional hearings. What
Okay,
caused?
George brings up something that's really important, and it could be the ultimate litmus test.
Right,
How many MAGA Republicans would
right,
go along with it? George is absolutely right.
right.
George is absolutely
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
You can just get a handful
right,
in Congress.
right.
It could fly.
You could absolutely. Is it? Yeah, we want to know. After all, this is a serious business. You
Well,
came.
I mean, when you go back to Alabama and Mississippi and say, but Mr. Congressman, Miss Congresswoman, you said.
Right, right,
I mean, it'll be a very interesting question. Does this have negative coattails?
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, that's right. And Trump, who seems to think, oh, well, I am America first, so it never happens that way. The whole idea that, oh, it's just one person, it just doesn't,
It's an ethos. It's an
yeah,
ethos.
that's right.
It doesn't
Yeah,
come from a prophet.
yeah,
No, it doesn't. It
yeah, yeah.
doesn't. That's not American political culture. It doesn't work
No,
that
no,
way.
no, no, no,
But
no.
what's interesting, George, now this is a little exaggerated. It's exaggerated. I repeat myself, okay? But with the laser focus on regime change in Iran, there's the potential for regime manipulation in America if it plays out the way we think it might.
Right,
Might.
right.
Um, we had a recent guest that was will certain. I stay away from that kind of line. It might happen. I do think there's going to be blowback for Trump in the Republican
And
Party.
there will be.
Again, Twitter is probably the most. It's for crazy people. It's for psychopaths and all
Right,
that. And when you're psychopathic, you have this platform. Okay,
right.
there's a lot of people that are truly, really pissed off.
Exactly.
An influencer that you and I know of, I thought rather kind of childlessly said, "Well, in the upcoming midterms, I'm going to vote only Democrat." Then you missed the point, lady.
Right,
Okay, you missed the point.
right,
Okay, I
right.
mean, it begs the question: should you ever vote again?
Yeah, that's right. Right.
Okay, everyone, George and I have watched a lot of presidents. We've seen a lot of politics. This has never happened
Yeah,
before. We've never had a sitting president uh, reverse like on this level of intensity, the scale.
that's
It's
right.
never happened before.
That's right.
This is not like read my lips thing. This is,
Right. This is a drastic reversal within 5 months of taking office and without any obvious event that would cause it. I mean, yeah, you can change your
no,
mind, your view.
he didn't invoke. They tried to kill me. He didn't even invoke
He
that.
didn't even invoke that. And why he did? Because he knows that people will say, "Okay, well, let's look at the evidence for that." That's them. That's a big accusation, because it's nonsense. But he didn't do that. So, when you said read my lips and the no new taxes, well, that was the recession, the 1990 recession, and Bush changed his view. And of course, Bush was punished for changing his position on the
Yeah, but he
taxes.
was punished by the lobby.
That's right. Yeah, all of that. So Trump has gone back on that, on the fundamental thing. I'm the peacemaker. He said that in his inaugural address. I'm the peacemaker. And you've done it on behalf of another state. The notion that, oh, I can get away with anything because I am Trump and I am America first. It's not going to happen. He's going to be very quickly disabused of that. You're not a religious leader. You're not Jesus. People are not going to follow you as if you were Jesus.
And you don't have golf courses there. Um, I don't know. We have a rubric here that George and I, for some reason, just revisit. It's called the Marco Rubio Barometer. Okay, because who's gonna have to explain Trump? Who's Trump's brain? It's J.D. Vance. So
Right.
J.D. Vance, well, if this goes south, which it most likely will, J.D. Vance, you're going with it.
Exactly. I
But
absolutely agree with you. Yep. Yep.
but Marco is kind of tiptoeing a little
Yep.
bit.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
see how bad it gets. And he'll say, well, I would have done it completely
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. He let Israel be bombed for a week.
Yeah.
A Rubio presidency would never let that happen. Okay.
Right.
The whole discourse on Israel could be radically changed. I don't know. Okay. But what I'm saying is the snake in the grass, Marco Rubio, he's angling right now. And he's saying, JD, it's your time to carry the water. Everybody, how much have you heard from Marco Rubio? I only heard from him one week ago. The Secretary of State, the United States is in war.
Right. That's right.
And
Yeah.
the Secretary of State has said, what?
That's right. That's right. It's very interesting because if he sticks by that statement, then he's essentially saying, "Look, as far as I knew, as far as I was
I was
told,
told.
this is an Israeli
I
action."
wasn't in the room. I wasn't in the room.
Exactly. Now the president tells me that they were planning all this together. I didn't know that. They didn't tell me about it. Um, that's a much more solid position instead than Tulsi Gabbard. I think Tulsi is in a lot of trouble, and Rubio could indeed glide by this, particularly as he had never been an anti-interventionist. I mean, this is a neocon, so there's no hypocrisy or any accusation against him. But you're right about J.D. Vance, because Vance is the one who's going to carry on and sending out these tweets saying this isn't nation building, this isn't regime change, this is not a long-term operation.
When you're explaining, you're losing, JD.
Yeah,
Oh, geez. Maybe that was your purpose all along.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Maybe it was.
yeah.
Okay. Because he has affection among the base, but within the establishment, nope.
Nope,
Nope.
no,
No
no,
way.
no, no, no,
No,
no.
he's got his techie friends in Silicon Valley.
Yeah,
Things go south for JD. He'll be another billionaire.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
He'll be fine, everyone.
yeah.
His presidential ambitions
No, I
might
think
have
no,
been
you're
blown up.
absolutely.
Might have been blown up this
No, I,
weekend.
I agree with you. I think you put it exactly perfectly. We said if this thing goes south, J.D. Vance's political ambitions go south with it. I think that he's stuck with that, and he, of all people, whose entire meteoric rise from nowhere to vice president was based on his hostility to the war. Oh, we were lied to. We were lied to. This war was terrible. Our elites, they don't care about the ordinary Americans. They're getting them into all these wars, these stupid wars on behalf of interests other than those of Americans. That's it. That's where, your entire reputation is based on that. And this is what you're stuck with. So this is very, very quickly is going to just essentially his political ambitions will just fizzle out.
At the risk of repeating ourselves here, my gut tells me, George, that this is going to escalate very quickly, very quickly. I, because I think that it should be common sense, even though common sense doesn't always seem to be in play here. Mr. President, you've got to wrap this up quickly, or it's going to nag at you. It's going to be uh, uh, it's going to be a weight on your presidency. And that's because he wants to avoid that. And he wants this incredible win in his mind and
Right,
his handlers. Okay. And he took out Iraq. It was, um, during the Iraq War, but real men go to
right,
Tehran. Okay. And so
right,
Donald Trump, he's the real man right
right,
now. This whole manosphere thing is a
right.
weird phenomenon. Um, but he better, if he's chosen this path,
It's going to be
There's
very difficult for. Now that's
Mr. Trump, you can't make compromises now.
no, no, no. But it's going to be very difficult for him to wrap up
Oh
because
no, I don't think he can.
no,
I
I
don't
think
think he can.
no, because Israel is going to be calling the shots. Israel is setting the timetable, and they want regime change. And now that Trump has identified America's cause with that of Israel, you can't just simply get off the train and say, well, that's it. You know, Israel can just do its own thing. No, no, no. He's now, we're in on this together. So I think this is just simply the first step.
No, I think that they will assassinate the supreme leader.
Yes,
I'm absolutely sure
yeah,
of that.
I think
But
so
you
too.
know, they'll just get another one. Okay.
Yeah,
A
yeah,
pope dies, you get a new one.
right. I think they will assassinate him, and that all of that is just going to create more and more aggravation because I think Americans are going to get more and more anxious as to what the hell have we got signed on to? You know, we're just killing, the head of state of another country. This is dangerous stuff. But
And I think with the technology that we have right now, this is going to be on hyper speed. I mean, we're talking, day. We're not going to say how this is going to work out in 3 months or 6 months. No, no, we're talking hours and days,
right,
weeks.
right, yeah, I agree.
I really think it's going to be very, very, very intense
Yeah,
because the people around Trump say this is only going to work if it's done fast.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think that's what's going to happen. I think could be by the end of today we will hear about some major assassinations. I mean, they've already conducted a number of them, but clearly Khamenei is in the Israeli process.
George, okay, you're probably like me. Okay, this is Sunday. I usually have things to do on Sunday, but every single hour I checked headlines. I just said,
Right,
stop just for a second, because I'm waiting for exactly what you just said.
right,
Okay?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
A new weapon has been put on the battlefield. Okay. No, but everyone, this is also, and I would not say also, it's primarily spectacle. Spectacle. That's how they're selling it. A spectacle.
Yeah,
Wow. Took out three targets. We don't know what the targets are, why they're important. Nobody tells him, but they took out three
yeah.
with these really big bombs. It's spectacle, spectacle.
That's right. And it's
You
a
know, one of the things that it's really tricky here because they really don't want to show the destruction in Israel.
yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay. There's so many weird nuances here. It's like two mirrors bouncing off of each other. How you control this and whatnot, and the issue of freedom of speech. What, Cash Patel? You got your goons out there.
Right, right.
There's going to be a lot of podcasts like this. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I think so, and that's why the destruction in Israel is a very interesting one because, of course, the way the media are presenting it, oh, a couple of empty buildings were destroyed, and we don't know what the truth is. However, that looks like a lot of destruction. You look at the pictures and say, hey, that looks a lot more like that's not just simply somebody's back shed where you keep your gardening tools that was destroyed. That's an apartment building that's just been destroyed. So you have to think that there's a lot of destruction that's taking place, and therefore the aggravation will continue because again, this will be Netanyahu will be pressing Trump and saying, look what's happening.
Yeah,
If
because
Iran is
Donald,
doing this to us,
you've already put your foot in the stream.
right,
Okay, let's follow up. Let's
right,
follow up. There's no turning back.
right,
There's no turning back from this. It's
right.
only going to escalate and escalate because they're not going to get. Yeah, will they get regime change? I have no idea. Will they destroy a good part of Iran? That's pretty sure.
That's that's
Okay,
the
that's
that's the
pretty
goal.
sure.
That's
Okay,
that. Yeah, yeah.
but is that going to cha generate a desired outcome? I
No,
don't know.
I,
I don't know.
yeah, yeah,
And anyway, we know that, people, it's not hard to find out what Iran is like as a society. deeply divided, like America, like European polities. Okay, they like the government, dislike the government, like the supreme leader, but hate the prime minister. This party is a group of fools.
Right.
I live in Russia. Everybody laughs at the liberals because they're always wrong about everything. Okay, but then when you strike the Kremlin, those differences fade
I think so,
away.
and I think it's even I think even critics of Iran have to admit the nation has rallied to the leadership. So whatever I'm quite sure it's the government isn't especially popular, as it isn't in most countries. This
Most governments are not
not
popular.
popular. And probably they'd like changes. I'm sure they would like a change. They don't want the Pahlavis back, but I'm sure they'd like change, serious political change in Iran. This isn't the way to do it. The public is now rallying behind the government. I think these demonstrations, that maybe they're government organized. I think they do express real feelings among Iranians, as did those demonstrations when Soleimani was assassinated. I think that looked genuine. I don't think you can just simply get millions of people out on the street just like that, to commemorate the death of Soleimani. So those are real feelings of Iranians, and I think
And you have to add to the mix is the cradle of the civilization is in what we call the Middle East, the Greater Middle East. I know a lot of scholars don't like those terms, but anyway, it's shorthand. Um, Iran, they're Persians, and that means something to them.
yep,
It means a lot to them,
yep, yep.
actually. Okay. And because empires have attacked them, they've been defeated, but they
Yep.
never disappear.
No,
And
no.
that is something that is it's profound. It's
Yep.
really
Yep.
profound
Yeah, yeah.
that you're not going to be able to, you might be, you can destroy this country, but you're not going to be able to destroy this civilization.
Yep.
And that's how Russians think. Russians think in terms of civilizations. Of course, we use the modern, nation state.
Yep.
Okay, and that's true also. But the way they think about it is our culture, our society, our civilization,
Right.
and that Iran. The Persians have remarkably sim the Han Chinese.
Yep.
They think in terms of their civilization.
Yep.
Okay, of course, yeah, they think about the nation state, our borders, and all
Right.
this.
Right. Right.
But what's most profound for them
Yep.
is their civilizational
That's right.
expression and legacy.
Exactly. It's the ancient civilization. Whatever they think about the clerical regime or anything like that, that's not important. It's the fact that it's a ancient Persian civilization, and that's something that matters to them, and that's why everything that's being done now is actually solidifying the public. They're under attack. Not only are they under attack, they're under attack by two nuclear powers. Two nuclear powers have bombed them within days. That's not a time when you think we need to get rid of the government. We need to have elections. No, we need to absolutely rally around and to survive. This is our first priority is survival. Not, I think we should have fresh elections and see, some political campaign. So this is exactly the opposite of any kind of regime change aspiration, which of course they know. And they know that that's exactly the opposite, which means that Netanyahu wants to escalate, and that's his goal. He just wants to keep escalating.
One thing that Trump's policy planners most likely haven't forgotten or don't want to focus on is the very massive bombing campaign of the Houthis in Yemen. How'd that work out? Now you're doing something of many magnitudes larger,
Right.
many, many magnitudes.
Right.
Iran is a very big country, and Ted, it's about 90 million people. Okay, it's a very diverse place. Okay, that was such a reveal, wasn't it? That was
Right.
such a
But
reveal.
what was interesting about, well, Tel Aviv Ted, I think Glenn Greenwald pointed that out, is he showed himself to be a complete fraud, because there are these
Well,
Christian
George, if you're a
Zionists.
fraud on this, what else are you a fraud about?
Exactly, because
Exactly.
with the Christian Zionists, at least they can quote the Bible. They can quote chapter and verse, as the key parts of the Bible. But when he talked about those who bless Israel are blessed by God, and then Tucker asked him, "Where does that say it in the Bible?" Well, I don't know where it is. So you see, Tucker actually knew where it was, but he didn't even know that. All of this was just a fake. I mean, it's a fraud.
No,
He
it's
doesn't read the
something
Bible.
that George and I reflected upon, and it really dates us here. But it's like during the 1980s in Eastern Europe, whatever you wrote about, if it was about culture or grammar or gardening, as Marx and Engels said,
Right,
there's always
right,
the ideological altar.
right.
And again, I think they are disgusting, awful human beings. You're using the Bible.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
don't. Okay, you can say, according to this think tank and the Rand
right, right,
Corporation
right,
and
right,
responsible statecraft, that's okay with me. Don't
right.
invoke the Bible. Okay, don't.
Yep.
It's not yours to abuse.
It's so strange, really. I guess they're so unused to anyone challenging them that
Exactly.
that that Cruz really walked into these traps. I mean, he walked into that trap with the Sunday school and so on because he assumes no one's going to ask him. Well, where does it say that in the Bible? It's like, and he's never asked that. Just like he doesn't expect anyone to ask him, you've been going all these years and years and years about Iran. I mean, that's his shtick, Iran, and then no one's going to ask him what's actually the population of Iran. A very basic question, no, it's not a trick question, and he just wasn't expecting because Sean Hannity is not going to ask him, Mark Levin's not going to ask him. I said that's it. I don't know. We could just see what an absolute fake he is.
I was thinking after that interview is that some entrepreneurial character in the greater Washington area is going to send a collective email to every House and Senate member say, Iran for Dummies course this weekend. Okay, lots of pictures, lots of graphs. Okay,
Right, right,
low reading. Don't worry. Okay, no, I'm absolutely sure a few people are saying. Can you get some congressional aid? Get me a PowerPoint
right.
program presentation. What is Iran all about? I bet you somebody has already done that, you know.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And, but I think that's so characteristic of these gas bag, blowhard politicians who always want to bomb something or other. And you ask them a kind of would be a very basic question, and they would not be able to answer. Just anything. I mean, you ask them about Russia, any basic question about Russia, they wouldn't absolutely know. All they know is Putin, 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 Putin. That's all. That's all they know.
No, I know. I had a guest in my program. And it was early in the conflict, and he said, if NATO doesn't stop Russia, all Ukrainians will be speaking Russian. And I said, but they already do. But they already do. It's very interesting.
Yeah,
Very interesting. I'm and you brought up such an interesting point. I don't want to. I think it's important reiterating that Trump doesn't have a coalition of the willing. That's so
yep,
interesting.
that's right.
That's so interesting
Doesn't.
because we remember the drumbeat to war with
Yep,
Iraq. I mean,
yep,
and that was a master class
yep.
in gaslighting.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Why didn't they do it? Because
Exactly.
they didn't think they had to.
18 months. It was 18 months. That was September 2001, and they weren't ready to go until March 2003. So there's a long time, to work on the public with fake intelligence and everything else. So that took a lot of doing. And you got some sort of a coalition of the willing. Even then, it was a pretty feeble one because only the British really, and I guess some obsequious East Europeans who thought, hey, this will fast track us into NATO. But none of that. There's none of that today. The Europeans are not going to join in any of this. They're not going to support Trump in all of this. And he
And
really
The Gulf
no, no, no,
country.
exactly. All of those, all when he went there to Riyadh and delivered that speech. None of them. is supporting what Trump did. Or, not Saudi Arabia, not the Qatar, not the UAE. None of them is supporting this.
And it begs the question, is that who does want this war? Only one country
Yeah,
wants this war, and it's Israel. And for some reason, the United States is going along with it because the public opinion in the United States is dead set against
right,
this. I mean, it's when you get into these 80-20 questions, percentage, take a step back,
right,
everybody. Okay? I
right,
mean, it's hard enough when it's like 54, 55, 45, okay? But 80-20?
right. No, that's right, and I think that's um, you know, I would think today most of the American public when they're watching this, they think, well, let's just hope this is all there is to it. That's it's going to come to an end today. But once you go into next week and the week after, and it's ongoing without any real prospect of it's coming to an end, I think the public is really going to turn
Well,
against.
and then you're going to have the lobby knocking on. I know Trump doesn't sleep much, but he's not going to get any sleep at all. Well, what about us? You're in. Are you? I mean, you're not in or you're in. Okay,
Yeah,
let's go.
yeah,
Okay.
let's go. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, the lobby and all of the that all those Democrats who came over to him, well, the hedge fund billionaire, what was his name always escapes me, the one who took his money out of Colombia, yeah, yeah, what
I don't know why it doesn't set into our minds.
I
I
know it's
know.
just I guess it's a nondescript person. He's just a billionaire. He's a hedge fund billionaire and very pro-Israel. I mean, there's nothing distinctive about it. It's just they're a
Yeah,
dime a
but
dozen.
I'm sure he gets through the gets through to Trump's
Yeah,
cell
absolutely.
phone.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
It's says
Yeah.
extraordinary times. You know,
Bill
I,
Ackman. Bill Ackman's the name.
Bill Ackman. Okay. Was this all inevitable? Nothing is inevitable.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
This was a craven choice.
Yeah.
This was uh, a war that was allowed to happen
Yeah.
consciously.
Yep.
You know, the United States wasn't attacked. We
No.
didn't, this wasn't a Pearl Harbor. Okay. We are in we're involved in a war that was not provoked by Iran. You
No.
can dislike Iran all you want.
Right.
Okay. That's fine with me. But you've elevated them. You've elevated them all around the world. And you won't find that out on Fox.
No.
Okay.
No.
I
No.
mean, have you seen any of Fox's coverage? It's
No,
just,
I've only heard about it. I mean, I've seen little clips of, these creatures like this Kaylee McEnany, um, waving their pom-poms and, and saying, oh, it's all very simple. You just, one of these big 30,000 pound bombs and all your problems are solved. That's the Fox News thing. So they apparently they're doing this whole thing. Exactly. The
yeah,
script
I
hasn't
saw a
changed.
little bit. They were doing the war porn where they have
Yeah,
the B-2s and,
yeah, yeah.
dropping their ordnance. So they just play it over and over and over again as if it should titillate you
That's
somehow.
right. One thing as we should mention before we go is the guy who got it right was Seymour Hersh. Seymour Hersh posted a Substack column, I think sometime Tuesday or Wednesday, I can't remember. He said the attack on Iran will take place this weekend. I don't know who his sources are, but he got this right. I mean, it seemed far-fetched. Said it's going to take place this weekend.
And for many of you watching this, he was the seminal investigative reporter of our generation.
Right. That's
And excuse me, it's the dog. Now he's relegated to Substack.
It's that's right. Yeah. Um,
Amazing. It's really amazing.
Bannon also got it right. Bannon's show yesterday, early afternoon, said the word is the party is on. He was quoting from A Bridge Too Far. I think that was when he said the party's on. Now, well, at least with Bannon, you think, okay, well, he obviously has good connections, but he said, yesterday afternoon, the party's on. Um, So they got it right. Everyone else got it wrong. They thought they really took the 2 weeks seriously. So,
No, well, you and I said that the 2 weeks is just
well,
a
yeah, I thought so. I didn't think
get
it was that.
ready.
I didn't. I just didn't think it
Oh,
was.
I was surprised. I was surprised. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
I thought, well, at least you need 2 weeks to get this,
yeah. Exactly. Get all your ducks in a row. Yeah. And I thought they need a little work on the public opinion a little more. They need just to massage the public a little more. Get a
I heard a rumor that Zelensky is wandering aimlessly through Kiev crying in his hat. Okay. Tough luck, dude. Just the timing was wrong.
right.
Bad timing. Your comedic timing just
Yeah,
doesn't have any mojo anymore.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think that's good. That's going to be interesting because Trump, he's going to be obsessed with this, and he's just not going to care a lot about anything else. And it's not a winner. It's not a winner policy.
No, no.
It's just not a winner.
No, no, definitely not. Not particularly if you ran as the peace candidate. If you ran as a John McCain, okay, that's what we expected John McCain to do. John McCain became president. We would expect John McCain within 5 months to get himself into half a dozen wars. Um, that's kind of not what we expected from Trump. And no one likes to be made a fool of. And that's the big problem. That's why Trump thinks that, oh, I can get away with anything. No, you can't. No, you can't. People don't appreciate being made fools of. And if they
Well,
think all you're doing is a thing, you're grifting, you're a grifter, getting naive people to support you, saying, oh, America first, I really care so much about American workers. And it turns out what you really cared about is Israel. Then they think, hey, we were taken advantage of. That's not a good situation.
yeah.
However, whatever Trump's charisma and whatever, that's not going to work for him.
Yeah, charisma doesn't work when the price at the pump is high.
Right.
It doesn't work. Sorry. Price of eggs doesn't work. Sorry. People need gas. People like eggs. Okay.
Yeah.
And most Americans couldn't find Israel on the map if their life depended on it. And I mean that seriously.
Yeah.
They can't even find it on a
No.
map.
No. No. No.
All
No.
right. I have a very bad feeling, George, that we're going to talk very intensely about this. It has to break, and I mean this kind of in a dispassionate way. It's got to break in Trump's way in a decisively, or else this is going to be a boondoggle.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. That's right.
All right, everyone. That's 2.5 hours of just nonstop. It was a good one. All right, everybody. This is The Goggle with Peter and George. We're on Local, so please go to thegoggle.locals.com. You can, God willing, for the tech, in terms of technology, we'll be definitely here tomorrow. And something tells me, George, we'll have a completely different show. Okay, every day.
So it's something
We're gonna
else.
serve up something.
That's right. So tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern time for our joint live stream, and then join me for my solo Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern time. And then there's the real issue here, which is the dogs who are getting increasingly frustrated. And the point that they are making
Yes,
is
because the dogs are saying, you lie, you lie.
that's right. They don't like it when there's some dishonesty afoot, and you say the tip jar. Everything has to revolve around the tip jar, and all the rest are peripheral. So if you have anything lying around, such as crypto and gold and silver, and big bills, bills that weigh a lot.
Benjamins.
Exactly, Benjamins, into the tip jar, stuff it in, because there's so many of them, you got to keep stuffing them in. We're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve on the technology, and above all, we're gonna, finally lay to rest, the dog's accusations against us. So, it's going to be hard work. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye bye.